Right. If there's quite a few questions and it looks like they're not going to ease up, then we may just need to move on, and there'll be opportunities to get in contact with those presenting after the meeting. So don't feel like once we've moved on that you can't then find a way to ask. We'll put the relevant email addresses into the chat as well. So running order, Rachel's going to talk through the research process. She'll do a much better job of that than me, which is why she's here. So I will hand over, Rachel, if you don't mind just doing an introduction of yourself and then cracking on with the slides.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me. Is everyone able to see my screen? I can't quite see if there's going to be any hands up, so let me just move that across.
Yeah, we can see, and I'll let you know about hands.
Perfect. So hello everyone. My name is Rachel and I am a research nurse at the Whittington Hospital. I previously worked within an A&E department and I've almost been in research for a year and a half. Sadly, my colleague Lily and my manager can't attend. She's feeling poorly, so you've just got me this evening. We were invited to talk to you guys to talk about for 30 minutes about how a research study is typically opened within a hospital. The presentation aims to introduce research for the first time if you've never been offered to take part in a research study. Here to talk about any myths that you might have about what we actually do, and give you also the opportunity to ask any questions as they come up. So just talking about who our team are and our lovely photos, our growing team consists of, we've got nurses, midwives, research practitioners, assistants, and we've also got a pharmacy team who aren't pictured here. And we would need those if a study is looking at a particular medication. We all come from a variety of different backgrounds, working with emergency settings, intensive care, midwifery, and community even as well. Typically each we would manage a couple studies, either in pairs or individually, depending on how complex the study is to run. Going through the rest of the photos, in our middle photo, we've got a picture of a body and each of our studies pointing to each body part that it relates to. So we do cover almost the whole entire body. In our left-hand corner, we've got our Siren study cupcakes for participants. And that was a study looking at antibody levels and response to the COVID and flu vaccines within NHS staff members. Just to the side of that is our Elsa study, Elsa from Frozen, which is quite handy because it was for primary school aged children, testing for type 1 diabetes, as that's not routinely tested, and we need to justify that, so that is the Elsa study. And then just a couple images along, second one from the right, that is a photo and certificate and flowers for our longest participant in a thalassemia treatment study. So at the side, I'm going to be using this flowchart to the left as our guide for the talk. So our first thoughts when looking at a research study is to ensure that it has all of the correct ethical approvals in place. There are two main steps to approving a research study. We have national approvals and our local approvals. At a national level, the study is submitted and reviewed by the REC and the HRA, the REC being the Research Ethics Committee and the HRA being the Health and Research Authority. So there's quite a lot on our slide. And they are to make sure that the study protocol, which is essentially the study plan and its supporting documents, are safe and they are appropriate for patients. So, i.e. they're not coercive at all, they are free of bias and they're easy to read as well, which is really important. But overall, they aim to protect and promote the interests of patients. So depending on the type of study, other approvals might be needed, such as the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. This is to make sure it's reviewed by specialists in the field to offer that medicine.
Close the door.
Sorry, is someone able to mute themselves if that's all right? Thank you. So yeah, we've got MHRA approval if the study is looking at a particular medicine. We need that to ensure that it's safe. Although some studies might actually just look at what dose of a medication is best. So that medication might be already widely available, but we don't know what dose is best for the treatment, or if that actual medicine can treat another illness, for example, as well. So it might already be approved, but can we use this for another purpose? So once a study is approved nationally, it can then be opened at hospitals and other sites in the UK. If they need a large amount of people or variety within the population. But before they've kind of open up, we've got a local governance and research team as well, to make sure we at the hospital can give our own approval as well. So then we're going to be looking at actually opening the study once all those approvals are in place. So we would express our interest to the study team. The study team would be the healthcare company, a university perhaps, or a hospital that have actually made the study. And we at the Whittington, we would be a site that carries out that study for them to get as many patients enrolled into the study as they need. The expression of interest form is completed to say we are interested, we've got the people to do it. And it's completed by our head of research and a principal investigator, which would be the doctor looking to carry out the study. The principal investigator has overall responsibility for the study at the hospital. They should work directly with a patient group and be an expert in that field. The principal investigator would then ask some of their doctor colleagues to support them with doing it. They might happen to go on holiday sometime and need some cover. So they would be co-investigators. These might be other, consultants. They might be registrars, they might be junior doctors, or even nurse specialists as well. Within the research team, we would then allocate a coordinator for the study, responsible for the day-to-day running, and they also might have some background in that patient illness or group. Yeah, depending on who's better for the role. What's left to do? So we would then sign some contracts to get some agreements in place. Equipment, we would look at what we need, what we have, and does anything need to be supplied by the trial team essentially? If they're asking us to do blood tests for participants, what do they supply and what do we need to order in essentially? The staff within the research team would also need to be trained as well. So any doctors wanting to help out with the research study in particular, they would create a CV, what's typically used for applying for jobs, but a bit more research specific. They would also need to complete a good clinical practice certificate. And that's essentially the gold standard of research practice, making sure that anyone involved in research is taught how the process works in research and ensuring that they can get informed consent from a patient. And this is updated every 3 years. And then once all that is in place, you would get what's called the green light. And that means, yes, you as a hospital site are ready to go and you are ready to recruit patients onto a research study. So recruitment would start with screening. And this is done in a number of ways to identify potential patients to take part in the study. We might identify a patient via an emergency admission through triage, outpatient appointments. We might visit you on the ward as an inpatient, at a specific scan that you're having, or a blood test. In terms of information, we would provide a patient information sheet, although some studies also provide their own videos or posters as well. So in a patient information sheet, it should explain the benefits and risks of taking part in the research study. It should also let you know how your data would be stored, so the information we collect, and how long you're involved in the study as well. It might just be a one-off questionnaire. We say hello, complete a questionnaire, you go home, that's it. You've participated in research. Or you might be required to come in a couple times, maybe at your routine appointments or additional trips as well. Some studies will allocate a study ID. So this wouldn't be your name, it would be something to replace that or in addition to. This could be a combination of numbers or letters, depending on if the information needs to be anonymised. Also, for some studies, you would be randomised into groups. For example, one group would receive a potentially new treatment, or you might receive standard care or receive a placebo. A placebo is often an inactive ingredient medication, replicating what would look like what it's being compared to, if that makes sense, and completely safe. Often when a patient is randomised, a computer might do this, so it's completely fair. And sometimes as well, you might be informed of your randomisation allocation. It might not be easy to hide, for example, or sometimes if you're allocated into a group, you might not be told which group that is. So that all the information can be directly compared, for example, to see which one is best. Sometimes as well, your doctor might not know also, so that if they are asking you questions, they are doing so without bias. So at this point, you should have received all the information that you need to decide whether you would like to take part. You would have the research team to answer any of your questions, and you would know what doctor is involved in this research study as well, if they need to answer any more questions from you as well. We would hope that you'd be able to make an informed decision and one that is not rushed or coerced, and you've made this by yourself or consulted with family members as well, which is really important. Looking at what data we are collecting, go on. So we're looking at patient information, essentially. So potentially your past medical history, what you've been diagnosed with now or previously, for example, asthma, high blood pressure, or sickle cell disease. Then look at your current medication, what you're taking, and demographics as well, most often. And this is to compare participant data, so things like weight, age, and ethnicity. But just to say as well, before we collect any information, we would need to make sure that your informed consent is there, and document that in your notes. So what samples are required? Again, your information sheet should let you know what we require of you, whether they're routine bloods and we take the results of those, or do we need research-specific bloods? So we've got bloods, we've got saliva. These are often for DNA analysis, to see what's in your DNA or if your DNA is reacting to a certain drug. Urine samples as well, potentially, to see if medications are excreted in that. Swabs as well, nose, ear and throat. And then we also have some other samples, which I won't mention because we're very close to dinner time. So we're looking at sample collection, and we then would look at what we're following up as well. Data follow-up can be done in a number of ways. We might be asking you some questions face-to-face or by telephone, depending on what information we need. If you consent and provide some samples, you might need to provide some more potentially over a long period of time. Potentially some questionnaires as well. I do a lot of work with health and wellbeing questionnaires to do with different illnesses. And then for follow-up as well, we might take a look at your medical records. And this might look at if you've had any recent hospital admissions or had any new diagnoses since we enrolled you on the study. So what do we do with that information that we have collected? We have electronic databases for some of our studies. These are often username and password secure, and would have delegated access. So only a select number of people would be able to enter this information, and the study team would be the one to look at it. We also document in medical notes as well, and we have our own notes that we write up as well. So that's our data collection essentially. So what do we do with that data? Data analysis actually often occurs within the central study team. So that be the healthcare company that's doing the study, the university, or another hospital that's devised the study. The central study team would only receive information that you, the patient, have agreed to share as well. They would review and analyse this data, which is often done by academic staff or statisticians. And this analysis can take a long old while, as the central team are very likely to be analysing a lot of data if it's a big study. At this stage, your study data is combined with the study data from all other participants, and it's looked over to identify the results of the study and compare it to other participants that have also taken part as well. This data analysis is important, and it can help it identify if the study can help improve patient care and treatments overall. And it would also take into account any adverse events or any deviations from their plan or protocol that they had devised. So the overall, reason why we do research is to improve the lives of patients and the public. It can create new guidelines, and it can change our practice as well, whether it be safer, more cost efficient, and therefore money can be put into another service. How do we make care more effective, quicker, and improve patient experience as well? Okay, so that is a run through of the research process. I don't know if anyone's got any questions at this point. I'm next going to talk about the Crosswalk A study that we're running at the Whittington, and then we can talk about the research process that we went through to open that study. Any questions so far?
Thank you, Rachel. No questions have been put in the chat as of yet. Do feel free to do so. And likewise, if you have any burning questions about any of the stages at this point, feel free to put your hand up. That can be from patients, professionals alike.
Absolutely. If something didn't make sense or I need to explain something a bit more, please let me know. I will move on to talking about the Crosswalk A study, which is what we're running, and hopefully the research process will make a bit more sense in my slide after this. So it's a clinical study evaluating the safety and effectiveness of crovillimab, and this is a potential treatment being researched for people with sickle cell disease. And we know that this condition is historically under-researched. Treatment options are very small in numbers, and the treatment out there also doesn't work for everyone. So crovillimab is being studied as a potential treatment for a crisis. It's being hoped that it can reduce the inflammation and destruction of red blood cells, and therefore improve the actual pain crisis, whether it be the amount of pain and the length of pain as well. So I'm just going to play the video and hope that it works.
Rachel, I just wondered, is this supposed to have sound?
There is indeed meant to be sound, is there not?
There is no sound.
Oh no, that's a shame. Let me see if I can share my screen again and see if it works. There we go. Let's see if this works.
Sickle cell disease affects more than 20 million people across the globe. Red blood cells are normally disc-shaped and flexible, but in sickle cell disease they become curved and rigid, resulting in blockages in blood vessels. These blockages cause severe pain, known as pain crises, or vaso-occlusive episodes, and cause damage to organs. Researchers are working to find effective treatments for pain crises. These treatments need to be evaluated in clinical trials before they can be made available to the patient community. A clinical trial is the process used by researchers to evaluate how well a treatment works and how safe it is. Crovalimab is a medicine being investigated in clinical trials as a new treatment for pain crises in sickle cell disease. Crovalimab will be evaluated in 2 clinical trials, Crosswalk A and Crosswalk C. These trials will also gather important information about sickle cell disease biology. The trials will be open to patients with sickle cell disease between 12 and 55 years of age. Patients will randomly be assigned to groups to receive either the active treatment crovalimab
Apologies.
or a placebo. A placebo is given in the same way and looks the same as the active treatment, but contains no drug or medicine. A placebo is used to make sure any health effects are from the treatment rather than other factors. Neither the doctor nor the patient will know which treatment the patient receives. Patients will still be able to receive their standard treatment for sickle cell disease during the trials. The first trial evaluating crovalimab is Crosswalk A. Crosswalk A will evaluate how effective crovalimab is in treating an ongoing pain crisis. In Crosswalk A, patients who are admitted to the hospital for a pain crisis will receive 1 treatment of either crovalimab or placebo as an IV infusion. Patients will have regular tests and checkups while in the hospital and after they are discharged. The second trial evaluating crovalimab is Crosswalk C. Crosswalk C will evaluate how effective crovalimab is in preventing pain crises. In Crosswalk C, patients will be given crovalimab or placebo for 48 weeks, approximately 11 months. The first dose will be given as an IV infusion. After this, the treatment will be injected under the skin. The injection will be given weekly for 5 weeks, then every 4 weeks. During the study, patients will have regular checkups. Additionally, a handheld device will be provided to record pain crises at home. Before giving your consent and enrolling in Crosswalk A or Crosswalk C, you will be told all the risks and benefits so you can make an informed decision that is right for you. Through these studies, we want to walk side by side in partnership with the sickle cell community to find effective treatments and to gain a better understanding of their disease. This is why we have called these the Crosswalk studies. People who join these studies may help to bring these benefits to the global sickle cell community. We greatly appreciate the time that you and your loved ones are taking to consider this trial. For more information about the clinical trial and about additional support that may be provided to you while participating, please speak to your care provider or ask for a Crosswalk clinical trial brochure.
Perfect. Thank you for listening to the study video. Let me just go back to my presentation. So that's a really good example of how one drug is being researched for not different conditions, but for different purposes. So we are running the Crosswalk A study, A being for acute in a pain crisis, but then the Crosswalk C study is looking at how long-term this drug can help. So
Oh yes, being a farmer.
sorry, is someone able to unmute themselves? Thank you. So just looking very quickly at what the research process was for us when we opened the Crosswalk A study. So we needed all of our approvals in place for this study. The Crosswalk A study is recruiting at UCLH and the Whittington Hospital only in the UK at the moment. It's a worldwide study, and it's hoping to recruit 30 patients in total. And it's quite a small number of participants because it's in phase 1 at the moment, so very early stages. When opening our study, we have a principal investigator identified, and this is Dr. Emma Drasser. And then she enlisted her colleague Ryan Mullally to assist her with the study as well. And we have a number of other haematologists, registrars on our delegation log as well to help with the study. And we knew that it would take 2 research nurses as well, me being one of them. And then London being a really high population for sickle cell disease. In terms of recruiting for the study, we would approach patients in their haematology clinic outpatient appointments or with the specialist nurse, and provide the information sheets and show the video, and we have posters and brochures as well, so we've got lots of information to share. The reason why we would come to a clinic is to ensure that we can give information and ensure that people have got the information before they present to A&E in a crisis. So if then someone comes in a crisis in our A&E department, having already spoken to them about the study, we would approach them. To approach someone in a crisis for the first time about a research study is not the best idea. You're not very likely to get the most informed consent due to the amount of pain that you're most likely going to be in. For the study, there is some randomization. So there's a 2 in 3 chance or a 66% chance of receiving the crovilumab medication. And this is versus a placebo, so that inactive ingredient medication. We would then, that is double blinded as well. So again, me or you potentially receiving the medication wouldn't know. Again, trying to reduce that bias in the information that we collect, and that the patient would tell us having received crovilumab or the placebo. We would administer the medication and collect samples. For this study in particular, we would be collecting blood and urine. And we would also notify the GP as well. You most likely contact a GP when there is a medication involved for a research study. Just to note as well, we don't change any other care provided if you were to take part in the study. So general analgesia protocols still would remain in place. Nothing would change otherwise. In terms of follow-up, it includes some telephone calls, 5 in total, and 2 face-to-face appointments, and this is across almost 1 year. We would ask questions like, have you had any crisis since the medication has been administered? Are you taking any new medications at all? Questions like this, and most likely observations. It's more of a conversation, really. Our recruitment for this study ends in March 2024, and then data analysis would take place as well. And this study overall, again, we want to improve the lives of people with sickle cell disease. If this could become a new treatment for an acute crisis or for everyday medication, then that would be the overall aim of the study. I hope that explains a bit about what research is, how we work and who we are, and if there's any other questions, please let me know. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Guys, fire away. Usually a vocal crowd, so don't be shy tonight. If you got any questions, please feel free. Even if you're from outside of the eligibility zone for this study, please do ask questions. Was it Kate Dessine put a message in the chat about UCLH as well with Crosswalk C? If you want to do any light touch recruitment on top, Katie, feel free. And again, if you don't want to come off mute, the chat is available.
I think research is one of those things that's new to everyone until you actually do it. And, being a 1.5 years in, I still don't know everything. So, yeah, any questions?
Hello, my name is Abby. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, perfect.
Hello, my name is Abby. This study, have you already started, or when are you going to start it? Sorry, or you're just recruiting? Have you already recruited people into this already?
Yeah. No, I think we opened May last year. We've not actually we've not recruited a patient yet to this study. We're finding it really difficult because the study itself is really complex in terms of the eligibility criteria. You need to, present to A&E within a certain amount of time, and it's just by chance that we haven't recruited anyone. But it's been open for a fair while. We're ready to go, but yeah.
Yeah, the reason why, because I do go to the waiting scene, and I think I got a thing in the post about the study, but I didn't really understand I think
Okay,
it came
yeah,
from
I mean,
basically that's what I'm asking, whether anything has been done yet.
yeah, if you've got the information sheet, feel free to give us a call. I'm in the office tomorrow. Yeah, if you've got any questions or you want me to kind of run through it in a bit more detail than this presentation, then feel free. Yeah, but we're just running it at the Whittington, the Crosswalk A study, and then I think Katie's just said that it's at the UCLH as well. So yeah, feel free to get in contact as well. Just quick conversation if you want.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lifa.
Hello.
I wanted to ask a question. Is there like a specific age limit for the kind of patients you're looking to recruit?
Yes, there is indeed. For the Crosswalk A study, it is up to the years of 40.
Okay. So which means someone more than 40 won't be qualified for the study?
Unfortunately, so yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you that you told us that. I didn't realize there was an age limit for the crosswalk A that you're talking about. What about crosswalk C?
Crosswalk C, I don't work with, so I can't tell you, I'm afraid. I'm just double checking the age limit. Just give us a moment. Because it's recruiting younger people as well. Oh, forgive me. So it's recruiting. Crosswalk A is recruiting up to 55 years old.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. My mind's a bit all over the place having just presented, so I apologise. Yes, up to 55 years old.
Okay.
Question from me, if you don't mind. Just around, you said it finishes recruiting in March next year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens in the process if you don't meet the recruitment threshold? Is it pulled
really good.
from?
Yeah, no, really good question. I think if the study doesn't reach its target, I think it would then look at, does it have the funding to carry on recruiting potentially? The study team have just done a meeting with all of the sites that are recruiting to see if there's any way that they can help us with us struggling with recruitment or identifying people. So yeah, they do offer suggestions as to how to help approach people and what more information can they provide as well, which we've asked them for.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a question in the chat from Taiwo, who says, are both the studies only open to individuals that go to the Whittington or UCLH assays from outside of that area?
Yeah. What I would say is the Crosswalk A study, so the acute pain crisis study is at the Whittington. Yes, we don't do the Crosswalk C study. I think the thing is we like to have given the information before a patient comes in a crisis, because we know that someone in pain isn't able to give their most informed consent. So we would prefer it if they were under a haematologist at the Whittington, for example, so that we know the individual and we've spoken to them before we would offer them the study in that acute situation.
So if I'll bring Katie, I'll bring you in one moment. I believe Martin's on the call, Dr. Besser, who may be able to correct me if I'm wrong here. But if you're a patient, say in Norwich, and you're under the care of the Whittington as your SHT, so you get your annual review done with Dr. Drasher.
Yes.
I'd assume that means you're still eligible, even though you don't live in London, because your specialist hemoglobinopathy team is the Whittington.
Yeah, what I would say, our eligibility criteria requires you to be within the hospital within, I believe is it 10 hours from the start of the pain. So
okay, fine.
Yeah, the criteria is quite heavy. So if we've come to you with the information about the study, we would explain that to you. We would know your address and let you know, by the time you travel from Norfolk, for example, you might not be eligible. So we don't want to offer it to people that logistically wouldn't be able to get there within that time frame. And the eligibility criteria is quite extensive, which is why we've gone through the clinic lists and looked at past medical histories, because it's really extensive. So ideally we would have screened and gone through all of our criteria against individuals and then offered it. That would be our ideal route. Yeah.
Excellent. Katie, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to say about crosswalk C would probably be more open to people who are a little bit further away, just because we don't have to wait for a crisis to administer the medicine. So you'd be invited to the hospital at certain time points to have your medicine. But the visits are quite frequent, especially at the beginning of the study. There is some reimbursement available as well. So if you are traveling from other areas, the company who make the medicine are providing some of the expenses for you, so that shouldn't be a problem. But like Rachel was saying, it was just you do need to be known to the service. But there are ways to make those introductions and connections so that we can offer more patients the opportunity to take part.
I agree. I think, you know, we should be ideally offering every single patient that comes into hospital the opportunity to be in a research study, i.e. to help themselves or to help other people. So, yeah, we're really happy to be running this study. Even though the eligibility criteria is really massive, it's quite hard to identify someone, but we feel very lucky to be having it open at the Whittington even.
Now, Lifer, I believe it's pronounced Lifer, you've came off mute. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. I think this question is as well, Kate mentioned something for those people who live outside away from London.
Yeah.
Who have opportunity for this study to have these trials done. But also, this is referring to you, Rachel. You mentioned that you're having problems finding people for the study, and knowing that London has the highest number of people with sickle cell anemia. So I don't know the procedure, the criteria in which you're looking at all these people. Is it just based on hospitalization or word of mouth, how you send out your information? Because people with sickle cell, they're most of them don't like to talk about things like this, or some people around them might not know so that they have sickle cell anemia, and even such studies available, they don't want to partake. I think they will need more, how am I going to say it? I'm looking for a specific word. More ways of reaching out to people, because a lot of people don't go to the hospital often, even though they are sick, but they are not that sick enough to be hospitalized or to be in the hospital for that long. So by the time they are sick or they are not in the hospital and they are not getting the information to you, and you won't be able to get information to them.
Yeah, completely agree, which is why it's important to be involved in those outpatient clinic appointments and speak to your consultant or doctor that's running it and ask them, you know, are there any research studies that I might be able to take part in? How can I help? What we're finding is that when we provide some information about this particular research study, it does take personal commitment and personal risk with taking a medication that's new. You know, you might really want to be a part of research, but not want to take that personal risk of taking the medication, because that is what the study is looking at. It's looking at the safety of this medication, and for a lot of the people that we've approached, it's not necessarily the information, it's the personal safety, and also family as well, whether they would want you to take part as well, fearing for your safety as such. So that's really one of the main concerns. You know, people are busy. Sometimes people don't want to think about these things. They have jobs, they have kids to think about. It's, you know, it's an additional thought to go home with and information to read and consider. So there's lots of reasons why people haven't decided to go along with crosswalk. Yeah, I hope that answers some of your questions.
It does. And I understand that, because I'm using myself as an example.
Yeah.
I'm above a certain age and I have a little boy. Even if I want to go into the study,
Yeah.
I will have to first consider him. What if I do this and it doesn't work out the way it's supposed to work out? I begin to experience traumatic syndromes or it affects me in a negative way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
those are the
exactly.
kind of things they will be thinking about as well.
Exactly. And
they are
no
not
problem.
interested.
I agree. And a lot of people as well might be on a certain regime, or they might have started a new treatment that they're very happy with and don't want to disturb that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to wrap up this section and then move on to Eliane. So 2 questions in the chat, then I'll take the last question from talks afterwards. So the first one's from Bernadette, just asking around age, the lower limit age, if it's 12 and upwards.
It is 12 and up.
Yeah, so consent around adolescence, what's the consent process for adolescents? Yeah.
Yeah, so the Crosswalk A study is age 12 to 55. We would, at the Whittington, only consider participants above the age of 16 because both me and my colleague Lily that run the study, we are not paediatric nurses. So we deal with adults. In terms of paediatric consent, I've not actually consented anyone under the age of 16. You know, sometimes you've got 16-year-olds that are not yet 18, but they have the height and weight of an adult, and they would be considered an adult weight and might go through an adult A&E pathway. I think Katie's just put in the chat that you're recruiting to age 12 at UCLH. In terms of consent for a younger person, I hope Katie might be able to answer that process a bit more thoroughly than me.
Yeah, I can add some. So if you're under the age of 16, a parent or guardian has to give consent on your behalf, but we do ask the participant to also give assent, which means they have to sign a form which says they're also happy to take part and they understand what's involved because they have to be involved in that treatment and care and have a say in what happens to them. But legally, it's the parent or guardian that gives consent for that child.
Great, thank you. And then last one from the chat was from Gloria, who is asking about how often do you need to be in pain crisis essentially before you are eligible for the Crosswalk A or C?
So the Crosswalk A study, at least more than 2 crises in a year and no more than 10 is what the study is asking for within 1 year.
Great, thank you. And then last question of this section goes to talks.
Sorry. Hello. Yeah, mine is not a question as much, just for some of us that are here that have sickle cell regarding the clinical trial. I'm actually in the middle of clinical trial at the moment. And one of the ladies did say that if you're doing a clinical trial, what happens if you go wrong or things like that. One thing I know is if anything is going wrong, they will stop it straight away. You have to, you know, they can't stop it straight away. It's not that you have to go to the end or anything like that. Or if you decided that you don't want to do it anymore, you can actually just stop it and just speak to your consultant because they were quite very helpful. They explain everything to you. I mean, the one I'm doing, they're very helpful. They explain everything to me. And it is for 1 year. I started in May. And I go, yes, it is time consuming. I do work full time, but my work knows I have sickle cell. So at least once a month I go in. And yes, it is very time consuming. It is a commitment. And your family also have to agree with it as well, because it is you do need your family support as well and things like that. But I do think I've never thought about doing a clinical trial in a million years until I was in hospital with pneumonia, really bad one, really bad one. And I was approached. But another thing I do notice now is a lot of, I don't know about the hospital you guys are from because I go to London. A lot of outpatient appointments are over the phone. So how are you going to find people that are also going to do this clinical trial if they don't go into the clinic? that's another thing. I don't know how it is in Wellington. Yeah, but I do know that if you go for clinical trial, you do get reassurance and you can stop at any time. Just need to say that.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate that. And thanks for saying that, because I thought maybe you have to go through the whole process. But now that you mentioned that, I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, definitely it's worth considering, because we do need so many, you know, we need to try, they need to try this clinical trial, and we need other medication out there.
Yeah,
You know,
we need to
see
put
if it can
ourselves
work
out
for
there.
us. Yeah.
We need to give it so that we have a permanent treatment for us and other people who suffer from the disease. So yes,
Thanks.
thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, really special of you. For appointments that aren't face-to-face and they are by telephone, we work really closely with our consultants, for example, so they might let us know that this is by telephone. Could you then contact the patient after we've spoken to them on the telephone if they're happy to speak with us? That, I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I think we'll wrap up this section. Is there a message that you want to leave with? If there's a take-home message from your presentation, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. I think mostly that research, you know, isn't always a big scary thing to be a part of. I think it's important that you would know that you should be given all the information to make this decision. You know, nothing's done without your consent. And that the overall aim is to, you know, create new treatments, improve our service, yeah, and just create some new treatments for everyone. Yeah, and it's completely voluntary as well. So I hope that by talking to you today, you know, I've talked about one of our research studies, and I wish I could offer it to everyone at every hospital. That's our end goal with research, really.
Great, thank you, and thanks again for your time coming along and doing this talk. I'm going to bring in Eliane, who's just kindly came on camera. Excellent. Yeah, I suppose on to the next one. Just if you do a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and then crack on. If you've got slides and talks, I'm just noticing that you've still got your hand up. If that's an old hand, if you wouldn't mind just lowering it down so we can keep on top. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you, Rachel, for that really interesting talk. So my name's Eliane, and I'm the clinical psychologist that works at Addenbrooke's Hospital. And I want to come and talk to you guys today about some research I'm interested in setting up about growing older with sickle cell. Listening to Rachel talk, and she was very much talking about research being something that will be done by your medics, and that it will involve clinical trials. And I hope I've got a few slides to share with you, and I hope you see after my talk that actually there's a whole broad range of ways of doing research out there that can be really important for people with sickle cell. And there's a whole range of clinicians other than medics doing research, and I think you'll agree with me that it's really important to really think about people holistically and really look at people from all different angles. I want to present a few slides today to get you thinking about the research area that I'm interested in, but what I really want to do is hear from you guys about what you think is important. I really want to think with you about something called co-production, which is something I'll talk to a little bit more as we go along. And I just want to start also with a little bit of a health warning, because growing older with sickle cell is likely to be an emotive topic. And whilst I'm not setting out to upset anybody, you might find it thought-provoking, and you might find it emotional. And if you do, first and foremost, please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. If you need to drop off the call, drop off the call. If you need to step away for a moment, step away for a moment. If you need to talk to your team about things that have been brought up from this talk, do. And if you want to talk to me about it afterwards, then please do as well. Can everyone see my slides? Yes? I can't see your...
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So I want to start by sharing Dr. Besser's vision. If you're on the call, Dr. Besser, you're probably a bit surprised that I'm doing that. But Dr. Besser is the consultant haematologist in Addenbrooke's. We've done a lot of talking about what living well whilst you get older with sickle cell looks like. And he said to me, well, you've got to show this, you've got to show this slide, you've got to show this slide. And so I wanted to share with you Dr. Besser's vision. So I'm just going to swap what I'm showing you. Where has it gone? Here we go. So this is what we think we're aiming for in Cambridge. Joyful, happy, living well, older with sickle cell. But what we're really interested in is, what does it look like for you? And I want you to bear that in mind as we move forwards now with this talk.
Sorry, Eliane, can Patricia turn off her camera? It's a bit off-putting.
What was that, sorry?
There's a woman called Patricia with her camera on, but it's a bit off-putting. Could you turn it off?
Okay. Is it off?
Not yet.
I can't see anybody.
Yeah, Patricia's got her camera on and it's facing her ceiling. It's really off-putting.
It worked.
Patricia Ashley Cody. Can you turn your camera off, please, Patricia?
I think she may have a little bit of a struggle there getting it off. I can see she's trying. Yeah, I think if you crack on with the slides, hopefully it's while you're sharing your screen, Patricia's in a small box in the corner. So, oh, it looks like it's off now. Excellent.
Is that good?
So yeah, crack on. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about co-production. I don't know if that's a term any of you have heard about before, but it's why I'm here today, really. I want to start the co-production journey with you all in terms of thinking about research into sickle cell. And so when we talk about co-production, we're talking about clinicians, researchers, and people with the lived experience coming together, working together to design, create, implement, and cascade the research. Because it's based on the assumption that those that are affected by the research are the best people to decide what the research should be into, to help design it, to help deliver it. You are the people with the skills and knowledge that we need to hear from in order to know what we should be researching. So here's where you come in. Can you and I work together to reach a collective outcome? Can we think together about what the right research questions are to be asking at this point, what studies we should be designing, what we should be prioritising, because in that way, I believe we're going to enhance the quality and the applicability of whatever it is that we do. So that's my ask to you. Okay. So then just to set the context a little bit and thinking about why I'm so interested in this area. I want to thank Dr. Besser again for this slide. He gave it to me. So if you can see kind of on the left going up, we're looking at life expectancy, and that's going up in years of 5. And then if we look across the bottom, we're talking about going across time. And on this graph, it's going across time in decades. Okay. And what we can see from this graph is that there was very little change in life expectancy from the time we started recording it in the beginning of the 1900s right through to the 1970s, 1980s. And then with the introduction of new drugs, new medicines, new ways of treating sickle cell, we've kind of then seen a kind of a steady increase since the 60s, 70s, 80s of life expectancy steadily getting longer and longer. And I think many of you that are on this call now would have probably been born in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and you would have probably been given a message at that point that you should expect a shortened life expectancy. A very different message than what people born today will be given. So we have a first generation of people you know, that have kind of well outlived what was expected and what they were told to expect. And so we've got a group of people really where we're all learning and we're all wondering about how best to look after people when they get to this point in their lives. So my question for you, and what I want you to keep in mind as I'm going through the rest of my slides are, given that what we've seen from the last graph, given your experiences, given your thoughts and feelings, what are the psychological aspects of growing older with sickle cell disease? If you could start thinking about that so we can have a conversation after a few more slides. I want to know what's important to you guys. So the closest field to what we're kind of looking at here in sickle cell is in cystic fibrosis. And as many of you may know, there was been advancements in medication and treatment in cystic fibrosis, which means that people are living well past the time that they were told to expect to live, with far greater quality of life. And so the psychological researchers are slightly ahead of the game than we are in sickle cell, and they've started already to look into this and research these areas. And what they're finding so far is that this is a group of adults that perhaps didn't engage in their education, complete their education, because they seem to think, well, what's the point? And now they're kind of moving into adulthood, and throughout adulthood are kind of really suffering because of that and struggling to think, well, what's my purpose? What's my employment? What do I want to do? What do I enjoy? And they're a group that the messages that they were told when they were younger has really impacted the choices that they've made. We've often seen this for this group in their teenage years, for example, how they behaved, risks that they took. And I think those kind of points are things that people with sickle cell disease talk to me about too. And so I think it's interesting and it's relevant. The other thing with cystic fibrosis is because quality of life has got so much better, there's this whole interesting group of research talking about, well, who am I now? Who am I now if I'm not sick? And really kind of making people wonder about their identity. So what's happened in the sickle cell research is we've only got 2 studies looking at older age that I could find, psychological aspects of older age that I could find, but they're both from the USA. So the top study took 19 people with sickle cell disease who were 50 years old and older, and they asked them open-ended questions about their experiences of living with sickle cell disease. They asked them about aging, and they asked them about surviving beyond the expected life expectancy. And then they looked at those interviews and they extracted 3 themes, and they called them, number 1, challenges with sickle cell disease across the lifespan. And in that theme, they thought about things like the obstacles that people faced from youth through adulthood in terms of pain and in terms of complications and in terms of challenges related to that, in terms of employment, in terms of limits to physical and social opportunities, in terms of additional health problems, and in terms of the healthcare providers not knowing enough about this stage of life. Another theme that they looked at they titled Knowledge and Self-Management of Sickle Cell Disease Improves with Age. And what they found was that this was a group of people whose knowledge about the management of their own sickle cell disease increased with time and with age. But this was a group that had really learned how to take care of themselves and had a really broad range of strategies to help themselves to prevent and to manage crises. This is a group of people that knew what their personal triggers were. They knew when they needed to rest. They knew when they needed to move. They knew when they needed to hydrate. They knew what they needed to do for themselves. The third theme they pulled out of the data was what they entitled was surpassing life expectancy. And this is really interesting. And what they found was that for this group, that once they had surpassed the age that they were told to expected to be lived at, that this group found a shift in their thinking, kind of almost a rebellious kind of shift in their thinking, where they said, you know what, I'm done with allowing this disease and the prognosis given to me about this disease. I'm done with that influencing my thinking, and I'm going to move forward and follow my own path. Then the second study that's looked at older adults with sickle cell disease focused on the management of pain and the management of crises. And again, they interviewed 19 people who were over 50 and used a semi-structured interview to investigate these issues. And they highlighted two themes: strategies for pain prevention and strategies for pain management. So they found that this was a group of people who had a whole range of methods, again, adapted to preventing crises. So this group of people knew when to limit their activity levels. They knew how to use their social support systems to help themselves when they needed it. Those social support systems knew when they needed to encourage their person to rest, and knew when they needed to think about pacing, when they needed to think about slowing down. Again, they knew their own triggers and they knew themselves. They knew when they needed to sleep. They knew when they needed to avoid stress. They knew when the temperature was affecting them, and they knew when they were dehydrated. And they had a whole raft of strategies for pain management. So they knew they knew all about having a healthy diet. They knew when they needed to increase exercise. They knew when they needed to decrease exercise. They knew how to access low impact exercises in order to help themselves. They knew when to use distraction. They knew when to use stress management. So these are the only two studies I could find, and they were both in the USA. And I think lots of that we can take and apply to people in the UK, and it's directly relevant. But I'm also really aware that we have such a distinctly different healthcare provision in the UK, that if we were to do similar studies looking at something in the UK, what else might we find and what might be more relevant to us and how we do things in the UK. So what do we know about people in the UK growing older with sickle cell? And unfortunately, I don't think we know that much. There's a real gap. There's a need for further knowledge on this. So what is it like to be older with sickle cell? And that's what I really want you guys to think about. And that's what I really want us to have a conversation about. So what research do we want done in this area? So I'm just going to present just a few more slides, just thinking about how we might go about researching this in the UK, because I think it will look slightly different to the sorts of things that Rachel was talking about. So there's two main types of doing research. There's quantitative research and there's qualitative research. And very much what Rachel was talking about was quantitative research. So quantitative research is when we're looking at numbers, we're looking at results, we're looking at things that we can count, we're looking at things that we can measure. And any of you that have been on a clinical trial would have been in a quantitative research study. So someone would have come in, they would have measured some physical parameters related to you. They would have then made a change, likely give you a drug. They would then measure those physical parameters again, and then they would say, oh, any significant change that happens then we're going to attribute to the drug that we've given you. There's a different type of research. There's a different type of research called qualitative research. And this is where we're not so much focusing on the numbers, but we're looking for the themes. We're looking for learning. We might do this through interviews like those 2 USA studies did. We might do that by looking at people's diaries that they've kept, notes that have been taken, recordings of conversations. And I think when we don't know much about an area, qualitative research is often the useful place to start, because qualitative research is really able to give a voice to those views that are really rarely heard. It allows for a deeper jump into the real insight into the world problems, into people's real lives, into what people are really experiencing. And then when we really listen really carefully to people and look at what they're telling us, that then helps us to generate hypotheses and further investigations, which we might then want to go off on and do quantitative research with. It helps us understand experiences which isn't necessarily easily put into numbers. And it kind of gives us this really rich way of understanding what's actually quite complex information. So this is the type of research I think we need at the moment with regards to psychological experiences of older age with sickle cell disease, but I'd be really interested to hear all your views about that. So I have a sense that this is a really important area to research, and so I went off to our local university provider. So to become a clinical psychologist, you have to go off and you have to do a doctorate in clinical psychology, and as part of that you have to do PhD level research. Our local university in Cambridge is the University of East Anglia in terms of training clinical psychologists. It's not the University of Cambridge. They don't have a programme of clinical psychology doctorate. So I went off to our local provider. I went off to University of East Anglia. And I thought, let me see if I can sell this idea to them. And I went in and I said, I'm really interested in looking at this. And I was absolutely overwhelmed by their excitement with this idea for a project. And in fact, 2 people said, I absolutely want to be part of this research with you. And that's Kiki and Amy. So I've got the university on board. I'm on board. I need to hear from you guys. And then we need to get going with what we think is a useful piece of research. So the new intake of doctorate students has literally just started. They're just being inducted right now into the University of East Anglia. By January, they need to make a decision on what research project they want to take up. And what I want to do is put a poster together to give to that group of people so that anyone interested in doing this research can make an application and say, I want to be part of that research. They'll then spend 2024 designing the study, getting it up and running, going through to ethical approval, as Rachel's talked about earlier. It'll be 2025 when they'll be executing the study, and then in 2026 they'll submit that study for thesis viva examination and completion. So that's the kind of timescale that we'd be looking at in terms of getting this research done. So I want to open the floor to you guys really, because before I put a poster together for UEA, I need you to tell me, is this interesting? Is this worthwhile? Is this something we should be exploring? What are our questions? What is important? And is this doable? So what do you all think? You're on mute, Stuart.
Yeah, I am. Not anymore, hopefully. Thank you, Eliane. I was just going to ask if you could keep the final slide where you've got the questions you're posing. Could
you see the group? Because I can't when I'm sharing the slides.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye. Anyone who wishes to kick us off, just feel free to come off mute and start the conversation. I will offer as well that we can stop recording at this point if people wish to share some more personal thoughts. but for now, we'll go to the first person with their hand up, who is Tox.
Yes. I just wanted to have a good understanding. What exactly would you need from us if we are willing to be part of this?
Impossible to say, because it would depend on, it would depend on what the research questions are and how we're going to answer them. So if we were to do a qualitative study like the 2 USA studies did, then we were going out looking for, say, 10 to 20 people to have an interview, which would probably last about an hour, 90 minutes max, where the interviewer asks a series of open-ended questions to get someone to talk about the topic area. So that may or may not be the research design. But I guess I'm at the stage where, before we even decide what our questions are and what we're doing, that I want you guys to be involved in that very early stage in terms of thinking, what are the important questions? What do you want explored? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me now. Yeah. Thank you.
So that's the co-production. So you're not having stuff done to you. You're involved in the development of the project.
I think it's quite interesting research, actually. Yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tox. Elaine, you're next.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for that, Eliane. That was brilliant. I'm 100% in with you. My name's Darren. For a long time, I've been saying that there's not enough support. I mean, I was on Zoom just before this one, and there's a lot of emphasis on children transitioning, teenagers transitioning from teenagehood to adulthood. And considering that we have this chronic condition with life expectancy, you said, there's no preparation for us when we get to our 50 plus, 55 plus. There's no preparation for us. There's no support with the menopause, how it's going to affect us. There's nothing whatsoever. And for me, if this can help us, well, I'm a bit past it now, but I'm happy to help others coming up. But not past it in terms of dying, but I'm pushing 60 now. But it's really, really needed, because we know that years ago, because we didn't live that age, there's no research on it, but we are living past the age now. So I think we definitely need to study it. You have my full support, and I think it's brilliant.
Thank you, Elaine. So for you, is there a question around how can clinicians help prepare people for that transition into older age?
Yeah, I had to think about that, but it's because now that I've kind of been through it, well, still going through it, and with some of my other friends I know going through it, we can come together as a group and share with you how it's been, rather than me share online to this. But it's just, I think what people don't, and I mean, even the doctors don't, well, everybody knows that if you've got any health condition, hormonal changes can affect that condition, but they don't seem to apply it to sickle cell. There's a massive impact on us. We already have pain all the time, and then suddenly, for me, the pain escalated, the level of disability escalated, my tiredness, my energy level, everything just got worse. So it's about looking at that sort of like our diet, doing this sort of change our diet at that time, looking at our regime. And then for me, I couldn't work anymore. So that was another massive change, having to leave work early. So it's all those things, kind of like who supports you going through all those changes.
Yeah. Okay, so something around the broader stuff that goes on at that point in life. How do you navigate it? What could be helpful, and where will your support systems be in terms of going through that?
support systems. I mean, I remember at work, I just happened to see when I was working 7.5 people that are due to retire. Obviously, I wasn't due to retire at that point. So I'm thinking, so they're preparing you for retirement. Have you got this in place? What do you need to do? That sort of thing. So they're recognising the massive change of retirement. That's the same with us. There's massive change as you get older, and also it's also trying to think positive, because I think that if you think you're going to die, you block energies that are going to make you live and live life to your full. So it's about your mindset, changing your mindset to say, well, actually, I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm not going to think about dying. I did appreciate, by the way, your introduction, Eliane, because often we come to lectures and they just straight go into like the negatives of sickle cell. No one's thinking about the impact on us hearing about the sort of like the pain, not the pain and suffering, but like the life expectancy and everything. People are just saying it like they're at university with a load of students, but we actually patients and we're actually feeling this. It's quite upsetting, even though we know it. But someone just talking about it like as a matter of fact, it's not. You know, we've got our children, our families, and our lives. You know, I appreciate your introduction and telling us that it's sensitive and if we need to look after ourselves. While you're, 100% appreciate that.
I hear that, Elaine, and I've offered to help my non-psychology colleagues in terms of thinking about how to do that, because I hear you and I see it. So just want to say that the offer there is there for me to others to think about how we manage these conversations with people in a more psychologically minded way.
Yes, because when I'm home, so I'm in the house by myself. So when I hear things, I kind of get a bit choked up sometimes, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So thank you. But yeah, so I think it's about managing sort of our mindset and support groups for people who are 50 plus.
Okay, loads of ideas in there, Elaine. Thank you so much. And
Thanks,
something
Elaine.
that you might want to think about, Elaine, is whether you want to continue helping co-produce this research or whether you want to be part of the research, because I think you'd need to be either or after this stage, if that makes sense.
However I can best support it, it's so needed. I'm thinking about people coming up, you know, and they're sort of like 19, 20s coming up. By the time they reach 50 plus, they will have a program or something that they can look to as a guide, you know. I'd like to do both, but if you say I can't do both, then I don't know at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. We do have a few, just I know you can't see the chat, Eliane. We've got another 4 hands up, and we're 10 minutes out. So next is Calvin.
Hi, Elaine. Great presentation, by the way, and really good idea. And I was particularly interested in how you identified the issues around being young and with sickle cell, and especially if it's quite severe and you're told that you won't live, and then how that impacts the rest of your life and your outlook, and whether or not you're reckless or what other people deem to be reckless, and then all that comes with that. So I think as part of this, like you said, quality of life is quantitative, and I think it would largely depend on how impactful your illness has been on your life. You know, some people have spent a lot of time in hospital and had lots of issues, some haven't. So the quality of life would be depending on that, I suppose, from person to person. But most people would just be the fact that to be able to have a future in where they could plan, so i.e. work, you know, family and things like that, and knowing that their illness maybe hit some kind of balance would be a good quality of life. And for those that are younger, the doctors telling people continuously that you're going to die, you'll be there at this age and that age, which I had a lot of growing up, can either be a hindrance or a help.
Yeah.
And can add to your recklessness, or what people deem to be reckless. With me, I found it to be a help, as a way of proving people wrong. Because if you told me I couldn't do something, I would actually go out and prove that I could. But I was very reckless and would do the stupidest things that you could possibly imagine. Because of the fact that, like you said, if you don't think you're going to live very long, you have nothing to fear, and you don't care, and that carries with you throughout your life in one respect. So you have this sense of, I really don't fear anything, to be honest. But how we deal with the younger people, how not taking away hope is really important, because by drumming that into someone's head, you can take away hope and therefore ambition and what they think their future will be and what they will aim to be. So like you said, education, whether they should go to uni, job, family, all of that. And at the age I am now, which is over 50, I pinch myself every day that I'm still here and that I have a family, which I never thought I would have ever lived long enough to have.
Yeah.
And even though you have the problems you have as you get older can change, and in some respects get worse because of the damage that's been done, you still shouldn't give up on your life, which I think is a danger if you drum that into people when they're young, that they have no life to look forward to, and so there's no future, so then why should they bother? And it's the same with any teenager, sickle or not. If you give them no hope, then the outcome is kind of obvious. And it's even more so if you have an illness that you know is going to take your life. And I've lost lots of friends over the years. So if you have that drummed into you, it can be a very detrimental thing. And also to, when you're in your teens, again, to not take away that and to give people hope and to help people perhaps fashion a future and get them to think like any other teen would, what they want to do. They're not stupid because they've missed a lot of school or uni, or they didn't go to uni, you know. They're not thick, which is what we often get labeled as, stupid, and because we take lots of medication that can affect you, that also adds to that stereotype of being a junkie and being stupid. So we can work, if you can work on things like that for people, like you know, like where we have a handbook and a guide, so that people can see that the fact that, especially if they're looking at lots of people, because one thing I found interesting growing up, and when I was younger, I didn't know anybody up until about age of 20. The oldest person I ever knew that had sickle cell was in their 30s. And I remember a few years ago, I met somebody who was 70, I think he was, or 70 something. And I couldn't stop shaking this man's hand. And I wanted to hug him and not let go, because I had never met anyone with sickle cell that age, not ever. The only people I ever knew, the old people, were in their 60s maybe, but I'd never met anybody that looked so well. So I think part of the quality of life and how this could go is how we build people at different stages, and how, you know, give them a guide for life, as we would anybody else, not treating people with sickle cell as different from any other group of people, which is, I think, is very important, that we often get separated and treated as very different, and not worthwhile bothering, as it were. So that has a big knock-on effect on how your entire outlook on life. To be honest. Yeah, and the support system, the fact that when you're going through various stages, that there is support, that you know that there are people you can turn to, like psychologists, which is very important, because anger and anger management is a huge part of having sickle cell, I think, which a lot of people won't admit, but it's a huge part, because being in pain all the time makes you angry and can make you irritable. And if you're constantly told that you're not going to live and you're not of worth, added that to what you're going through physically, can lead to a very destructive personality. So it's how we deal with those things.
That's so invaluable, Calvin. There's something, isn't there, about how do we use the wisdom of this group to inform what we do with younger people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And so that young people, you know, having people older or yeah, people who are past 50, having young people being able to use them as resources, as it were, and being able to connect to them so that you can say, look, we're going to introduce you to a group of people who are of an age that you're constantly being told that you're never going to get to. But look, there's this whole group of people, and there are lots of them that have got to this age, got families, got jobs, careers, everything that you've been told your entire life up to now that you're never going to have.
Yeah.
Been made to believe that you'll not have.
Yeah.
So I think using the two different groups and the age groups to work together, to inspire the other, is a good thing.
Yeah. Ever so grateful for that, Calvin. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Bunmi, I believe, is next.
Hi, hi, Ellen. Thank you so. Yeah, great presentation. I'll try to make this short, and because I am a mother of 2 sons who are both affected.
Right.
And I must say that this study is invaluable. It's going to be invaluable, not only for the 50 and above, but for people that are younger. My children, one of them is a teenager, and the second one is going to be a teenager in 6 months' time now. And this would give them a lot of hope. I know that not just with the 50-year-olds, you would start the study will start revealing a lot of things that is going to better the quality of life, give people that are younger hope about, especially with the first page of your slide, the one that showed the life expectancy. You can imagine where we in the next 2-3 years, by the time, and it's gone up to 70 from 50 something right now. And that would mean a lot, not just to the 50 people, because of course it gives them a lot of hope, like, oh yeah, this is not going to come soon, and so I have a lot more years, because if I stay close to these thresholds, as this study has revealed. And also it brings, because this is going to be one of going to be a start of many studies to come. And this would, it's sincerely, it's invaluable, I must say. So I'll try and keep it short, because I know it's already time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you can see the importance for the diversity of research needed, and this is probably slightly different to the clinical trial research that you're used to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Taiwo now.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to add on to somewhat of what other people said, and I think this research would benefit a lot of people. Considering I'm currently studying at the moment, I'm not even near the age of 50, and I feel like this research would definitely help benefit a lot of people who are studying and going through sickle cell, like how I am. I think as well, one of the changes that I experienced was moving away from home, but also having to deal with sickle cell as well. And and I think sometimes how more severe my condition became because of the move, and dealing with that, and then the anxieties of going into hospital, and the acceptance I felt, because growing up, it was more of a thing where it was kept quiet, and I didn't tell anyone. And then once I started learning more about it, and more about sickle cell, I kind of became more acceptable to it, and I didn't shy away from the conversations. And and I think it would also help to understand how people with sickle cell are also trying to help other people who don't have sickle cell learn about it, because in a way, I growing up, I'm doing a presentation on all of it, and I didn't see much information on support groups for teenagers and adolescents, and education around it for health professionals. I feel even when I go into hospital now, it's all more, what do I know for myself, and not what health professionals could like know and what they can help me understand. It's more of what I'm trying to teach them about it and what's like good for me. And in a way, it's kind of like when I'm in a painful crisis and they're saying to me, what is sickle cell? It's just the level of education between people who have sickle cell and health professionals who have never came across it is kind of frustrating in a way, because you're kind of teaching them and you're like, I look up to you guys to help and guide me, but I'm the one teaching you. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this research would definitely benefit people who are going through uni and who are like experiencing stages of what they can and can't do, and experiencing like the stressful times of like moving, learning from going from primary school and high school and college, and having like that shelter around you, to then having a lot more freedom in managing your own care, managing your own time, especially with uni, and especially if you have like demanding courses, like the healthcare world is quite demanding, and learning how to navigate between sickle cell and doing a course like that. So I really do think it'll benefit those of a younger age and those of an older age. So it's great.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for being so honest and bringing so much of yourself into that. I really, really appreciate that. And I guess what I'm hearing is the importance of whatever research happens, the importance of it being educative, and helping people, particularly without sickle cell, understand that's a really key element for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Patricia, you have the last word on this section. Apologies to anyone else that was hoping to come in, or just for time reasons going to need to have Patricia with the last word. But again, Eliane, I think if you're happy to put your information in the chat, if anyone's got questions, and I'll put in the HCC email address as well into the chat for anyone afterwards. But Patricia, if you want to come in there. You there, Patricia?
Hear me now?
Yes, we've got you now.
Yeah, just to portray what Kelvin, and a few other people that have spoken, what they said. I'm just happy you mentioned, help with anger management. Another thing, I'm just trying to round up everything at the same time. And then about this study, I am really, really excited about it, and because there are too many questions that goes through my head as an adult. You understand that I really want to put, why are these things not in place? Why are they not? Why is this? Why is that? So I can imagine what will be going on, through a young mind, like the young girls and boys that are suffering, that are sufferers, just like myself. So that is one thing. So I really commend you guys for taking up this challenge. It's quite challenging. And I hope and pray that, we will be able to come together to help you get a robust data that could help us in the future, now and the future. So that is just, that's just what I want to put out there. Then number two, secondly, is a question. I didn't, in this research, would pregnant people be involved? This is not to say I'm pregnant, I'm not pregnant. I'm just asking?
So in my mind, it would be interviewing people who are over 50.
Over 50.
So if we had a pregnant woman over 50, I think we probably would try to cash in as much money as we could with regards to that.
Okay.
So I think it's unlikely. So I'm looking to really target this group that are coming to this point for the first time. What's important? What do we not know? What do we need to know for this group? Yeah.
Okay. So I was just wondering. So that was why I decided to ask. I wouldn't like to take too much of your time, but I just hope and pray that this will be successful.
Oh, Patricia, that means a lot to me. It really touched me with that. Thank you so much. And just very quickly, I know Stuart wants to move us on, but the first comment you made was help with anger management. But I think it's okay to feel angry about the situations that you find yourselves in. So I just want to make that message really clear, that I don't think you need help with anger management. You might need help with processing experiences and the strong emotions that come with it. But of course you're angry. Of course you're angry.
And mine just mentions just one more thing. Because we know I did mention about, what goes through young people, like teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a friend who
and I'll mute.
Are you there, Patricia? If you put yourself on mute.
Am I still on mute?
Oh, you're back now. Give us your final thoughts.
Okay, my final thoughts, so, I did mention about what goes through young sufferer's mind, you understand? Because I particularly mentioned that because I have a friend, yes, she's not hard. I have a friend whose son, a teenage son, just saying that, yeah, it was, and he had so much question. He was always upset. Why am I different? So this research, I want to ask, is it particularly for sufferers or parents that's got children that suffer from sickle cell?
This particular research isn't, but if you think that's an important area to research, let us know.
Yeah, because it's as important as it's what's important for the sufferer is also even more important for parents who is looking after this, their young ones that are. So maybe that's an area you probably should think about as well, because it's a very sensitive area and it's very, very important.
It is, Patricia. Thank you.
Yeah, because talking from my experience, like 4 of us in my family had sickle cell. I'm the only surviving one. My 3 sisters that passed away. So I can imagine what my mom, what she goes through, what she feels. So there could be a research, because if you have a child, you bring up, you have a child that's got sickle cell, you'll be scared. So I know this is very important, obviously, and I hope it's successful, but please, looking forward, I would very much like, would like to see, I hope, to look into that as well.
I hear you. Thank you. Really valid point.
Great, thank you. Just, Calvin, I acknowledge the hands up. We do have some other people on the call who are hoping to talk about other open or soon to be opening trials and research studies. I'm conscious they've been on for quite a long time and it's went over time already. So if anyone just now would like to speak up and say a few words about any trials that might be ongoing that's still on the call, please quickly do that just now. And then Calvin, if not, we'll come to you Promise.
Is it possible to respond to any of the surveys anonymously? Because one of your callers hit upon the fact that it's something that we have grown up with concealing from the world, and it's very difficult to talk about, but we all have so much to say.
Yes, how would we do that?
Well, would I be able to contact you, or?
If I'm going to put my email address in here, so you can contact me directly. Is that what you mean? You don't mind me knowing the person who's saying it? It's just not in front of everybody else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think so, yeah.
And yeah, I'll put my email address in.
Can you also contribute to the studies anonymously without having all your details?
So the researcher would know your details. They would then be all made anonymous, and it'll all be made anonymous then, and then put out there. And when it was put out, there'd be no way of tracing back. Anything would be taken out that could identify someone. There'd be no way of tracing back who said what. It'd be anonymous. Yeah, absolutely.
I think what Calvin, Elaine, Tux, everybody, Patricia has said, it's just like they're speaking my words, really. And yeah.
And that's super important.
There's so much.
Super important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. I think potentially others may not be sharing about the other studies, so I'm going to invite Calvin. Calvin, if you don't mind, try to keep it as brief as possible, just so we can wrap up the call. Apologies to cut you short, but I think we do need to start thinking about wrapping up.
Yeah, so 2 quick points. One, about the study and the anger management, why that's important, because the fact that it's not just about the fact that you feel angry about the fact that you're in pain and have sickle cell, it's then how it impacts on your life and in particular hospital. So lots of the issues that people with sickle cell have in hospital and with staff and with particular medical staff is based on their own anger of how they're treated and the fact that they're in pain and the lack of understanding, and then now how that then they are judged as being quote unquote difficult patients, and we get tagged. And so that's why that is so important. So if you understand that part, and then you understand as a tool to how to deal with your anger and your pain in the place that you're seeking help, and then be able to teach them, like someone else said, that's how that is really important to people with sickle cell of any age, because the anger doesn't then go away. You just may become better at dealing with it. And in terms of the research, this is for everyone. That the NHS Blood and Transplant, who I work for, are starting a program, should be in the summer or should be soon, or if it hasn't started already. And we're trying to encourage everyone with sickle cell and thalassemia to become part of the genotyping of blood. So it's not your DNA, it's your blood. So it's important for people with sickle cell who receive transfusion or exchanges, because as you all know, when you receive blood, it has to be an almost 99.9% perfect match. So what we're trying to do is, along with some other universities, some other medical bodies, is genotype all sickle cell patients in this country and thalassemia patients, your blood, so that we can perfectly match your blood genetically to a donor. And then we will genotype all the donor population. So everybody that donates blood, they'll go through the same process. But we need to genotype all sickle cell and thalassemia patients first. So when that comes around, your physician, either a hospital doctor or your GP should tell you about it, or your healthcare assistant should tell you about it. And I would urge you all to take part in it. And I know there's a lot of fear and questions about what we're going to be doing with it. And then, and as someone who has sickle cell but also works with NHS, it is literally to make the blood that we receive a better match, and to reduce the chances of people having a reaction when they have an exchange or transfusion down to a minimum. Because as you know, every time you have an exchange and you have a reaction, you build up a particular type of antibody. And if you build up too much of those antibodies, you can no longer have blood. You know, I've known people in my life who have passed away sadly because they couldn't have they became unwell and couldn't have blood, which is the only thing that could have helped them at the time. So that's why it's extremely important that we all sign up to it. Ask as many questions as you want. If your student don't know, there are organizations that can help you, the Sickle Cell Society, Red Cells or us, and there's loads of others that will out there in the NHS themselves that will be able to answer those questions. But I urge you not to just dismiss it as yet another trial or something that we're taking from you and we're building up this register of people's DNA. That's not what we're doing. We're literally building up a picture of all sickle cell thalassemia patients to match with perfect donors.
Great, thank you, Calvin. Can I ask just if anyone's got any follow-up questions for Calvin as well? Are you able to put an email address, maybe with NHSBT, into the chat?
Yeah.
Thank you. Eliane's put her direct contact in there as well, and I've put in the chat the HCC email address. If you're unfamiliar with the HCC, it's basically contacting me if you contact that email address, and we'll be able to link in with some of the trusts across North Central London and the East of England, East Anglia areas. So hopefully that's all the contacts you need from tonight. If you want Rachel's contacts, please get in contact with the HCC email address that's in the chat. There's a couple of hands up. What I'm going to do now, firstly, thank you, Eliane, again, for your time out of hours and all of that, but I think it's been really useful. I'm going to stop recording, and then I think